The next tab that we'll talk about is the Recon tab of the project. And the first thing to say is that if the Recon tab does not exist, it's likely that your ISR is recommending to develop the Warno instead. And in that case, it actually skips that step. So as long as you're not set to develop Warno, you'll have the ability to enter into the Recon tab. In the tab, you'll see all the things that you would expect to have to track on a Recon. The only major difference here is that we're now also dealing with the event level. So we started with a hazard, we brought in a project, and now we're also dealing with an event. And the reason for that is because we still want to be able to take advantage of some of the fields that are in the event entity. So things like registrations, the logs tab, communications tab, etc. So if we go back and look at our overall nesting, we start with the hazard, we have at least one but potentially more projects, and we have at least one but potentially more events. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. So on the left-hand side, we've got the prepared by and submitted by fields, and same thing here. This could be pretty much any contact that can prepare it. And the submitted by would be a specific EMS user that has the correct CE license. We've got a start and end date. We've got some things that come over from the event. So like the finance totals come over, for example. The number of people registered for the event comes over. We've got some execution lodging, transportation type stuff. Deployments are basically a record of somebody coming out for a wave. So we're tracking it in several places. The Recon contact area is the same idea as the ISR contacts and the Warno contacts, which is essentially, this is someone who might not be affiliated with Team Rubicon, but we're trying to track that we are working with specific people in different stages of the project or operation. And so if you're working with somebody specifically for the Recon, you would add them here as well. And there's a separate video to talk about how to add these project contacts. The approval process is the same as the other mission planning tabs, where the name is derived from the approval level lookup as well as from the master lists in the back end. So we can kind of hard code who actually shows up here based on territory and lots of other things. Once the Recon is approved, you'll notice that most of the fields will lock down. If it were anything other than approved, then that actually becomes editable again. And last but not least, let's go look at the actual Recon event. So it's hyperlinked from the Recon tab, but it's also underneath the Op Event tab. Either way, it's going to point to the same record. And if we look at the event for the Recon, a lot of the information is going to come over automatically from the project, and you might have to fill in a couple little things. We have a description if you want that to be in there. We have the registrations and the max event capacity. Just go ahead and leave this at 10,000. The main idea of hosting this as an event is so that we can utilize the comms, logs, and finance fields for those particular concerns specific to this event. So in this case, specific to the Recon, do we have any specific finance needs, specific logistics needs, specific communications needs? And that information gets communicated much the same way as we have in the current event management system, where it will be emailed to specific representatives. They'll have a chance to weigh in on it and go from there. In the finance tab, you'll notice we skip a couple sections, so we don't have the TR Exchange section as an example, and we're missing a couple other ones, but we do have a new one called Operational Finance, and this has things specific to operations like wire transfers, cutting checks to a local Chase Bank branch, petty cash, etc. So you'll notice some subtle differences there, essentially. The last note to think about is for events related to the project, they don't actually need to have their own separate event status. So the status itself is kind of more derived from the project, but the status field is still here because you do want to publish this if it's something that you want for people to be able to sign up for. So it's not a requirement to publish it, but if you are looking for volunteers for the Recon, in order for it to show up on the calendar, this still needs to be published essentially the same way that we use for non-operational events at the moment. To get back to the project from the event, you want to go back to the General tab and then click on Related Project, and then you're right back from where you started.